Hey, welcome back to Jay Creates. What are we going to create today? Well, today we're going to take this Peruvian walnut and this maple and we're going to turn it into this bar board. So let's go into the shop here and learn how to make this together. Catch the paper towel. All right, this way. Let's go. Okay, I'll go first. Alright, so as I mentioned in the intro, we're working on bar boards today. So there's many different ways you can do bar boards, and there's a few different sizes, or really any size you want to make it into, you can. Bar boards are typically like a 5x7, 6x8, 8x10 kind of a cutting board. They're not going to get a ton of chopping and all that stuff. They're mostly going to be used to cut limes or lemons or maybe cherries or something like that. So it's not going to be a lot of constant chopping. So that being said, they're a little bit smaller. Face grain is really good for bar boards, I guess, from what I've researched on. Also the edge grain. Any way you want to make them, if they're that size, you want to call it a bar board, call it a bar board. I'm not going to tell you what you can and cannot do. I'm just going to show you how I'm going to do it. And hopefully it helps you understand a little bit better and maybe make one yourself. So I got this maple, walnut, and cherry, and we're going to figure something out. And when I figure out how we're going to do this, we're going to come back and get the wood cut up and milled up to size, and we'll get going on it. Well, I think I got it figured out. So I want to go with the maple and the walnut, and we'll use the cherry in another project. Like I said, I think I made me a couple of videos here today. I may turn this into a single piece bar board, but for now I want to make the first one out of this maple and the Peruvian walnut. So this bar boards are typically can range from, again, they can be whatever size you really want them to be, but from what I've researched, 1/2 inch, 3/4 of an inch to an inch is like the perfect sizes for a bar board. So being that this maple is 1/2 inch, and I am going to glue this up edgewise, so it ends up being a face grain board. So the maple is 1/2 inch, this walnut is 3/4 inch. So I'm gonna, it's a little bowed, so I'm gonna cut an 8-inch chunk off of each, and then I'm gonna try to resaw this on the table saw, take that 3/4 inch down to a 1/2 inch to match the maple, and then we're gonna glue them up together. So let me get the table saw out. It's over here. Where do I want to put it? And yes, I'm using my new cart, by the way. You can check out the video here in the corner. I got this board on top just to protect it because I haven't finished the board. I haven't put any protective coating or anything on the top, so we're just working with it for now. And then down below we have my grizzly jointer, my $99 jointer. I'll put a video link up here for you on that as well. I got some scrap wood behind it, but we need to get this table saw out. All right, so we got the table saw out. First thing I need to do is go over to the miter saw here. I'm going to cut this 8 inches out of both of these, and then we'll come over here to the table saw. Alright, so I cut a couple of pieces of the maple, an 8-inch section of the Peruvian walnut, and what we're going to do first is we're going to resaw this Peruvian walnut. This is probably something better to do on a bandsaw if you have one, but you can do it on the table saw. Just be careful of what you're doing here. So I got the blade raised up about little over 2 inches, and I got the fence set at a 1/2 inch. So we're going to take this walnut, we're going to run it through this way, then we're going to flip it over and run it through again, and that should cut off a 1/4 inch of this 3/4 inch Peruvian walnut. Alright, so if I disappear once in a while, or if I keep my hands in my pocket, it's because it's like 30 degrees in this garage. Alright, maybe not 30 degrees, but it's in the 40s, that's for sure. It's been getting colder, and the temperatures have been getting down to 30, 32 at night, so it makes it kind of cold to work in here. Now that worked out better than I thought. So now that we got this Peruvian walnut built down to match this 1/2 inch maple, what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to run some strips through the table saw. This walnut is 4 inches. I'm going to rip this, I think, at 3 inches, and then I'll rip the maple in half as well, or maybe a couple of small strips. So we're going to do some ripping here, one way or the other. It's going to come out to a bunch of different sizes. And then we're going to glue them all up together, face grain. And being that it's pretty cold in here, we might have to pick this up another day when the glue is dry. I don't know. We'll see. So I am going to give these a little bit of a sanding just to knock off the fuzzies, right? Not a lot of fuzzies today. I'm just going to hit the edges really to make sure they're ready to go, so we can glue them up together. So let me get those sanded. We're not going to use all the pieces that we cut. These will be used eventually on another board, but for today's board, this guy's in there wrong. I don't have pipe clamps, and I know those are probably the best for any kind of board glue up, but I do have these aluminum bar clamps, and they're going to work just fine, I believe, just for me today. For what I need to do, I got some extra clamps over here to help with the clamping. So here's how we're going to make it look. Something like that. I'll maybe move this piece here, that piece there. Yeah, I think I like that better. So I'm going to set them in here. I'm going to stand them up. So we got those on there. Let's get the glue going. My glue's it's not frozen, but it's cold. So you get the glue on, spread it out evenly. Make sure your entire edge is covered. Once you have your glue on, now we gotta flip them down and tighten up the clamps. So this one's gonna come in that way. I'm just gonna rotate them all. Yeah, I probably didn't need to put glue on the last one, because this one had glue on it. Now it's double glued, which is fine. Just make them as straight as you can. We're going to cut this down to size anyway, since this is about an inch or so bigger than I want it to be. So I think I cut the boards at 8 inches. We're going to cut it down to 7 inches when we're done. And then we're just going to run the clamps. You want to tighten them a little bit slow and evenly, and you want to get that glue to start squeezing out from the top and the bottom. Alright, I got an extra clamp here I'm going to put on this side, or in the middle. That's it. Now we're going to let that sit. I'm going to let it sit for a couple hours anyway before I unclamp it, but it might end up sitting overnight or a couple of days until I get back into the shop. Yeah, so, I mean, doesn't look bad. Doesn't look great, but it doesn't look bad. I don't know. This piece actually doesn't look the same thickness all the way through. But it is a little off, but it is mostly flat. And what we'll do is we'll scrape all this glue off and then see what we can do with it. So this is just an old paint scraper. Alright, so we got it out of the clamps, and there's a lot of glue to be cleaned up and sanded off. What I'm going to do is, you already saw me scrape the glue off. Still a little bit wet in spots. I'm just going to get a damp cloth, wipe that down, and I'm going to hit this with the sandpaper. And then, I don't know. I'll hit it with the sandpaper, see what happens. Try to get this glue off. Maybe run it through the planer. I don't have a thickness planer, but I do have a jointer planer. So this is small enough where I might be able to, you know, just gently run it over there just a little bit at a time to get the rest of this glue off and to level it all out. So we'll see, right? What's the worst that's going to happen? The worst that's going to happen is we'll throw this away and start all over again. So I did sand it. It ain't perfect. We already knew that. Some of these pieces, they just don't look like this piece of maple is sticking up higher than the rest of it. So I'm just going to try to ever so slowly run it through the jointer and just take off a little bit at a time until it's flattened out. It's probably not the best way to do it, but it's the way I'm going to do it today. And, you know, hopefully soon I'll get my hands on a thickness planer. But whatever, let's try it. We're looking good here, looking good for the very first time in making something like this. So, like I said, you saw me running it through the jointer planer. I planed it down, got all the glue off, sanded it a little bit. I think I sanded it with like a 150 or something. It was like 150, 180. So then I'm going to trim this now. We're at 5 inches wide. So if I take a ½ inch off each side, that'll put us at the 7 inches. So it'll be a 5x7 board. So, like I said earlier, bar boards, I think the smallest you should do is like a ½ inch thick. So after planing it down, we're at like 7/16, maybe even 3/8 of an inch, whatever. The next one is going to be done better. But anyway, because I kind of screwed up when I did the cutting, and you know, I'm not trying to hide my mistakes on this channel, and I am learning, so you're learning with me. So the next one I do, I'm going to make sure it's, you know, the thickness is what it should be at. So we're just going to use the miter gauge. I got this set at ½ inch. I'm going to run this through, flip it around, and hit the other side. And take this nice and slow. 6 7/8. Right, so that 1/8 of an inch was the saw blade. Being that the ends weren't level to begin with, you know, I set this for a ½ inch, but some of them were longer than the other. So I should have just shaved the side of it off and then got a flat surface against the fence, and gone for my whatever measurement is needed. Again, we're learning, right? But I think that looks like really awesome. Okay, this piece of Peruvian walnut has a little hole right here, kind of goes all the way through. So, you know, this board is probably not going to get used much, if at all. It's probably just going to be a little display piece, the first one I've ever made. But I like it. So the only other thing I'm going to do, and we'll do this, is I want to drill like a little thumb hole here, like a handle. Yeah, I'm going to use the 1-inch Forstner bit. I'm going to put a hole in the bigger portion of the walnut, and then I'm going to get the router out, and we're going to router the edge of this thing, just give it a slight round over all the way around, and we'll try to give the hole a little bit of a round over too, or hopefully. So there's a little thumb hole, a little handle. So next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to hit it with the sandpaper again, and then we'll come back and slap some oil on this, or some kind of oil. Alright, here we go. This is it. This is the end product. Well, it's 99% done. Here's the 1%. I'm going to put some cutting board oil on this here in a minute, and we're going to see what it's going to look like when it's all shined up and oiled up. But anyway, here's the 99% done product. They got the walnut and the maple in here, really good contrasting colors. Makes for a beautiful little board. Again, this is my first time ever making a bar board, and I haven't even made a cutting board yet, but they are on the list to make. I could have done things differently along the way. I was trying to, you know, resaw boards on the table saw, and I could have taken a little bit more time doing that. When I was cutting them into strips, when I was ripping them into smaller strips, some of them were not the size I expected them to be, but you know, I sometimes forget I got to take into account the thickness of the blade. But all in all, it came out really nice. And yes, I did use the jointer as a thickness planer in the video, which is probably not the proper way to use it, but it's what I had and was available to use at the time. And speaking of thickness planer, in between yesterday and today, yesterday I was doing the build, today I'm doing the wrap-up video. I've been seeing people in the groups saying they were getting this thickness planer, this rigid planer, 3-blade planer, really cheap. So I found one within a half an hour drive, and I went out this morning and picked it up. So now I'm prepared, better prepared to make these and other boards. Stay tuned for a video coming on this. I'm going to do an unboxing and setup video just like I did with my $99 jointer. Anyway, let's get to putting some oil on this, and we'll get this video wrapped up. So I'm just using Howard's cutting board oil, food grade mineral oil enriched with vitamin E. So the instructions say to put this on, let it stand for at least an hour or overnight if possible, and then you buff out the rest of it, the excess or whatever. So we're not going to do the whole thing. I'm going to put some on, and I'm going to show you what it's going to look like with the shine on it, and then we're just going to wrap up the video. Oh, and I also want to debut my, we've all seen that I had a logo when I first started making videos, and I'll put that up here in the corner here. Then eventually I had my logo customized, and I'll put that up for you to see as well. So the very first one I had, it was just a template that I found online. I just changed the name. You know, everything else was the same, and I did see maybe 3 or 4 other locations or makers that were using that same templates. So I had mine customized, and you can see the new logo here. Being I also just had a birthday come, I don't know, a couple weeks back. My better half, my girlfriend, bought me a branding iron with my logo on it, and I'll do a review on this at some point. I found the person on Etsy that made the brand. So this is a plug-in one that you just plug in and let it heat up. And I was practicing on some wood before I did it on the final product. So I also want to debut the brand at this time as well. It's a 2-inch brand with my logo on it. J Creates Woodworks. It's got the log and everything. I don't know, I was practicing with it at home on a couple different pieces of wood and in here in the shop before I did this, and I don't know how that came out so good. Must have known that I was using it on a final product and didn't want to get all screwed up. But anyway, let's get to putting the oil on here. I just want to show you what it's going to look like. So I'm just going to squirt this on, and then I'm just going to rub it in with the cloth. I can already see just by pouring it on, it looks awesome. And I'll try to get a zoom in shot for you, but let me rub this in a little bit. Look at that. Talk about making the colors pop. Look at that. Oh my god. That looks awesome. I can't believe I made that. I mean, it's relatively simple to make, but still not. You still got to figure out how you're going to design it, what sizes and all that kind of stuff, but you know, and gluing it up. So it's been one of my simpler tasks I think I've chosen recently, but maybe not. I mean, the tea lights are pretty simple too, but I don't know, I just think that looks like awesome. But anyway, even with the logo on there, that looks really, really nice. Alright, enough of my blabbering. Leave me a comment below. Let me know what you think about this video, what you think about my first bar board. Any tips and tricks on making bigger boards. I do have plans. I got a template made, and I got some plans for, and we'll call it my signature product maybe. And I'll go into more detail on that when I practice with it first, because that one I am going to practice with before I make a video. Let's just say it's going to be a bigger cutting board in a specific shape and style. That's it's going to have its own little niche. But anyway, for the purpose of this video and this board, we're going to call it done. Thank you so much for watching the video. I would really appreciate a like, a thumbs up, you know, leave me a comment, make sure you subscribe. And if you do subscribe, make sure you hit that bell so you get a notification when I get a video out for this thickness planer as well. Alright, have a good weekend. I'll see you on the next one.